All right, we're recording. So, hi, folks. We are here with Stasha from BRIVO, and we've got a little question and answer session set up with Stasha, and she's going to walk us through some of the features of BRIVO and why it makes so much sense for our homeowners to use the BRIVO smart locks as well as additional BRIVO offerings. So, Stasha, I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. As Randy said, I am Stasha from BRIVO. What you see here is currently just an example of the BRIVO, the Parakeet is now BRIVO Smart Home Dashboard. This is what you will have access to as the property owner. So you can go in and see any properties that you may have available for rental, as well as have full control of those properties. Now, Randy and Robin, I know you guys had some questions for me. Do we want to go over those?
Sure. Do you want to do an overview of BRIVO, and then we can drill down to the questions?
Perfect. Yeah, that works for me. So as I said here, this is the BRIVO, or Parakeet is now BRIVO dashboard. On this dashboard, you have any properties that you may have available for vacation rental. At a glance, you can see whether or not that property is currently occupied by a guest, as well as the current temperature and lock state of that property. So you know your security, what's going on in there. And if you don't want that set below a certain temperature, you know what temperature it currently is in that home. Now, diving into that home, you will have full control of all of your devices. So if you have the front door lock, you have full remote control to lock and unlock that. If you have any door window sensors, you can see their current state, as well as if you have any freeze flood sensors or the thermostat, you can see that current temperature there. Now, on all of these, you have a quick overview of what the current battery level is in those. So if the battery is starting to die, you're made aware and you know what's going on in that unit at all times. Now, along with that, we also have a full logging system. So you would be able to see who's entering and exiting the property at any given time, as well as what's going on with your thermostat and all of your doors and windows. You also have the ability to set up multiple rules, letting you know what's going on in the home. So if there's any issues with the battery, if there's a potential flood issue, as well as setting up some ease of access for your guests. So saying if a reservation is about to begin, you can change the thermostat. If it's ended and there's nobody in the unit, you can also change that thermostat as well to possibly like a higher temperature. So you're saving money on your utilities while there are also guests in the unit or not in the unit. Now, you will also have any users who are potentially being set up by a broker that you may work with showing up here, as well as the reservation times. And if you have any guests who are coming out, you can also generate their access right here, give them a code and let them into that property without having to go through a broker and go through that whole process. Now, that is a very brief overview of the system, but as you can see, it's very user-friendly. You have a lot of information just at a glance, and you have full control of your property at all times.
Stasha, can you walk us across the tabs up there? Devices, users, details, logs, scenes, rules? Because I've had a couple homeowners ask about those as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these tabs at the top will just give you some different information. So devices gives you this screen that we're on right now where you can see all of the devices in the home as well as control them. Users is where you can go in and generate a user, or you can see the users that are going to be in the property or are currently in the property. Details is just going to be your property information. So the address of the property, the master code on your lock, really just some quick information about the property. Logs is going to be the full logs of all the activity within that property. Scenes are things that you can set up when you or guests of your own, not through a broker, they have access to these to do kind of a bulk control devices. So you can set them up, for example, movie night to lock the front door, change the thermostat, or even these home and away scenes to do those various controls of locking the door. And then rules is where you're going to set up all those rules for if this happens, then do this. So for example, if the unit is occupied, then change the thermostat, or if the unit is unoccupied, then change the thermostat to a different temperature.
Stasha, one of the reasons we Randy and I looking at BRIVO, like is about the lock is that it automatically generates new codes from and based on what the lease is. So if the check-in on the lease is check-in is 2, checkout is 11, that's when the code is active and then expires. But so can you go in a little bit to first part would be how is the code generated? And also if some of our homeowners have their homes listed with multiple realtors, and how would that work?
So as far as generating codes yourself as the owner, you would come to this users tab, hit this plus user button, and then you can put in all of their information, their first name, last name, their email, as well as the period of time that they're staying there. Now, as Robin said, the code will only work during this period of time. So if somebody is there from, the 5th of November to the 10th of November, that code will only work from 4 p.m. on the 5th to 10 a.m. on the 10th, and then that code will never work again. And then, you don't have to worry about them coming back if there's a different stay or anything like that. Their code won't work. It's only for this period of time.
So let me just stop you there. So this is what the homeowners see. We do not see this as Mary Allen Realty. So they would use this if they wanted to add an access for an owner rental or for a family member coming down. But if they are going through Mary Allen Realty, they would not have to do this, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So if they're setting up themselves, if it's an owner rental or a family member, this is how they'd set it up. If they're going through Mary Allen Realty or any other broker, that broker will go on to Real-Time Rental and create that lease as they already have been. And then once that's created, a code will be generated in BRIVO for that rental. So especially if you guys have your home listed with multiple realtors or with multiple brokers, those brokers aren't going to be able to see each other's guests. They don't have access to this portal. However, in Real-Time Rental, they still have full control of the devices when they have a lease in place. So for example, if there is any sort of issue and a guest can't get in, Mary Allen Realty or any broker that is leasing the property at that time can go into Real-Time Rental and control the lock and get that guest in and still help them.
That's funny. Will the homeowner see the codes? Will the homeowner see the codes of the guests on the dashboard?
Yes, so they will have the ability to see the codes for the guests. So for example, we can pull up this test right here. If they just select it, then that code pops up and they can see the code. However, one of the benefits of using BRIVO with Real-Time Rental is that all of the guest information is still protected. So especially for the realtors and for the brokers, all you will see as the owner is whose lease it is. If it's Mary Allen Realty's lease, it'll say that right here, and then the period of time that they're there as well as the door code.
Can you tell us what is different about the BRIVO smart lock versus some of the other locks that are out there? And
Yeah, so with the BRIVO Smart Lock, we use what's called Z-Wave technology. So it means that one lock is going to be connected to one hub inside of your home. That lock can't be controlled by any other hubs. It can't be accessed by somebody who's not supposed to have access to it. Along with that, if you go with BRIVO, we are fully integrated with Real-Time Rental. So it creates an ease of access for you if you're leasing your home through multiple realtors or multiple brokers. That way, like I said, ease of access as well as you have that security of knowing what's going on in your home at all times.
Can you describe what is Z-Wave technology?
Z-Wave technology is a little bit like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth mixed together. So Z-Wave uses radio signals to send the message from the gateway hub in the home to the lock to tell it to lock or unlock, or even to sync a code for your guests, as well as gathering all that information from the lock of when it was unlocked and who unlocked it, and putting that into the BRIVO portal.
And what happens if we have an electrical outage?
So if there's an electrical outage and the gateway hub loses power, there are a couple of options. So depending on when the code synced onto the lock, that guest code will still work. They'll still be able to access that front door lock and enter and exit the property. Now, if for some reason the outage happens before that code is onto the lock, then we still have the option for backup emergency codes that can be generated. Now, these emergency codes are backup codes that are synced onto the lock at all times. So you can generate that code, and then the guest will still be able to get in and out of the home without any hiccups because of the electrical outage.
What about Wi-Fi outage?
If there's a Wi-Fi outage, our hub actually is tri-band. So that means it connects via Ethernet, via Wi-Fi, or via a cellular connection. So if for any reason the Wi-Fi goes out in the home, it'll revert back to the cellular connection, and then the gateway will still work to control the lock, and you'll still get all of those full messages and logs from the lock.
We've got another question
Yeah.
coming, Stasha.
Stasha,
Okay.
is there ever the possibility that two people will have access to the lock at the same time? For example, if somehow there's a mistake and two tenants get assigned to the property?
So do you mean like two tenants from the same realty group, or two tenants from different realtors?
Two tenants from different realtors, or would it be that while a tenant is in there, perhaps a vendor could have access to the house at the same time? You know, if a plumber has to get in or something.
Yeah, so it does hold multiple codes on the same lock. So in the case where you have a guest and a vendor needs to go in, like a plumber, then yes, they would still be able to get in. As far as multiple realtors, the property can only be booked by one realtor at a time. So if Mary Ellen Realty is booking the property, then they're the only ones who have access to it. But if another realtor is booking the property, then Mary Ellen Realty, for example, could not set up a lease at the same time.
And the way I understand it, Stasha, is any vendor code that the owner has given out can also be shut off for a period of time as well?
So it wouldn't necessarily be shut off for a period of time. It can be deleted and removed from the lock if that vendor is no longer needing to go out to the property. And then a different vendor code could be created next time that they come out.
Okay. And on behalf of the guest, if a vendor such as the cleaning team has a code, their code could be set up for, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and the guest code then is at 2 p.m. But the cleaning code will no longer work except for that 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct.
So being on a barrier island, we have a lot of the salt really kind of takes a toll on a lot of things. What can you tell us about what type of grade you have for the lock?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the locks that we offer is the Yale Marine Grade Deadbolt. Now what this means is it's got a few different metals in it to prevent corrosion, as well as extra gaskets and seals to prevent that sea and salt air from getting into the lock. We have these all over the coastal region and they work fantastic. We haven't had any issues with them yet.
Okay, and so it's my understanding that the lock, the lock isn't standalone. There's a gateway and there's a monthly subscription. Can you go, like, not going to the cost of details, but about why it's packaged and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so if you had the lock only without the gateway or the monthly subscription, then all of those features, such as the portal and the real-time rental integration to generate those codes would not work. The gateway really is the brain of the system. That is what connects you to real-time rental and to BRIVO, as well as gives you control of that lock remotely. Now, as far as the monthly subscription, that's what gets you the website and that access. So you can have the lock and the gateway, but without that monthly subscription, you still don't have the ability to control any of those devices or generate the codes.
And so does it work with other existing, if someone has some, like, say, smart thermostats, does it work with, like, is there a way, like, they might have a standalone smart thermostat, but they really like this integration? Is there a way that they can convert?
So it depends on what sort of smart devices they have. If they are a Z-Wave device that our group has already tested to make sure it'll work on the system, then yeah, they can totally pair that in and work with it. If for some reason it's not a Z-Wave device, or it is a Z-Wave device, but we've never worked with that device or tested it, then there would be some additional steps there. If it's not a Z-Wave device at all, then they wouldn't be able to connect it to the system. A really good example of this is some homeowners may have Nest thermostats. Those thermostats will not connect to our system. Google has that integration shut down. But we've also seen that, especially in the vacation rental sphere, Nest thermostats aren't the best option out there. Nest thermostats really kind of learn as they're being used. And so when you have multiple people coming in and out of the property, it can be quite difficult for them to get that set the right way. Especially if you have, you know, potentially like older guests who aren't as familiar with technology. We've seen that Nest thermostats aren't the best option.
Okay, so would they work with, say, I have an Alexa in my house? Would they work with an Alexa?
So the Alexa integration isn't really viable for vacation rental. Just because you have to have individual profiles set up on the Alexa, and one of the shortfalls of that voice control technology is that she doesn't really know who's talking to her. Obviously you can still have an Alexa in your home. It just won't control the lock.
Right. So with the Alexa, would it say if it was a homeowner that wanted to use it in the off season, would it work like on that? And, you know, because it would recognize the voice on that, and
You know, that actually isn't something that we've discussed. We really just focused on Alexa for our multi-tenant sphere. However, that's definitely something that we can look into for the future.
Have any other questions?
No, that's about it. Thanks, Tasha. I think that
Of
covered
course.
all the questions I had, especially that one about what happens if there's the opportunity that multiple people can get into the house unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Perfect.
Tasha, you've been it's been very informative.
Of course. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
I don't know how to turn it on.
Top left recording button on the screen.